Hi, welcome to this week's episode. This is Ruth Elizabeth Hancock, host of Work Your Energy podcast. And this week we have Marguerite Rigoglioso with us, who is the founding director of Seven Sisters Mystery School and the author of the award-winning new book, The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception, Mary and the Lineage of Virgin Births. So, hi, Marguerite. I'm so pleased you could join me this evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And should I call you Ruth or Elizabeth?
I don't mind. I'm both.
You're both.
Yes.
Okay.
Ruth Elizabeth, maybe.
All right. You're binomial. Okay, very good.
So I've been doing one of your online courses, which is so interesting, and I have a slight passion for the Tuatha De Danaan. And I know you talk about this in the course about Arthur and Guinevere. And so I just wanted to talk to you about these amazing characters. Obviously, I'm British, so Arthur, Guinevere. These are characters which come up a lot in the British culture. And I just wanted to explore more, about who are the Tuatha De Danaan? Are they real? Are they supposed to be fictitious? What's your take on it?
Right, exactly. So the course that you're referring to is called Heal Yourself and Our World by Reclaiming Guinevere, Arthur, the Fae, and the Round Table. And that's on the Seven Sisters Mystery School.com site. People can find it under the online courses in case they get curious. What I talk about in there, and you can tell from the title, Heal Yourself and Our World, by reclaiming these people, is that I do believe that they are real folk. They're not just writings of the imagination of some fiction. And that is really shown to a large degree in the British historical record. There are these records going back to Geoffrey of Monmouth and even earlier, in some of the early Welsh legends and so forth, that Guinevere was real, that Arthur was real, that they had real lives and existences, that they were part of a whole organization known sometimes as Camelot or Avalon, and that they were really here to amplify the energy of our world in a more positive direction in a time period where, in particular to the British Isles, there were lots of invasions by unfriendly forces. And the reason why some people think of them as mythological, so to speak, or fictional, is because written into their record is the magic, the shamanic realities that they were dealing with, that they were under, the guidance of or under the attack of. So we hear that Guinevere and Arthur were working a lot with these negative magical beings, that, Arthur was fighting cat-headed beings and serpent-type beings, and that there were all of these magical things that were going on, even in the conception of both of these individuals. The interaction of Merlin, who essentially was the shaman of this cohort. The birth of Merlin was magical. And, many of these other stories talk about these strange, unusual circumstances. So I see all of these beings as having had human lives. And I also see them as emanations or incarnations of larger forces, just the way we could see Jesus and Mother Mary as incarnations of much larger forces who came into the earth plane to help us out over here. That's how I see Arthur, Guinevere, Merlin, and the whole cast of people. So who are those larger forces then? With Arthur, it is the Christed energy. That is one of the things that he embodied and transmitted. With Guinevere, it's the sacred feminine energy of Sophia, Mary Magdalene, Bridget, all right? So they were like channeling through their bodies and their human existences all of this other major energy. Not only that, but what we see in their lineages is that they were literally from dragon lineages. Okay, both Guinevere and Arthur. Arthur's mother has a relative named Gwen Pendragon. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Pendragon means head of the dragon. This is talking about beings who had physical reality on the human plane, but were also larger and bigger than that, which brings us to the Tuatha De Danaan that you're talking about. These beings who came in from higher dimensions into the earth plane, and they were sort of like in and out of third dimension, fifth dimension, and higher. And so dragon energies and dragon lineages are part of these other dimensional ancestral lines that have intersected with the earth plane. So we've got them, we've got mer people, right? We've got dwarves, we've got all sorts of beings, but the dragons are very, very high level energy. They are connected in with human lineages. And, we see that also with Guinevere. So they represent the high level, high being king and queen who are meant to be enacting the sacred marriage or the hieroskamos, or having that harmonious human male-female relationship life. And they are working with and bringing forth that energy to humanity to help humanity come back together after times of attack and so forth. So that's kind of a big, broad picture of who I see that they were and are, because there's that legend that Arthur is the once and future king, that he was put in stasis and that he was going to emerge. And there are oracles on the planet today, and I'm one who feels that I carry this information as well, that Arthur has reawakened. His energy body has reemerged. And with that, Guinevere is reemerging. She is coming back to availability. And their sacred marriage energy, what's known as the hieroskamos marriage, is coming back into availability for humanity, because it's one of the things that was torn from us, and it's one of the major things that has needed to be restored.
Okay, so are you saying that the energy is coming back, or the physical body is coming back?
I would say the body is coming back on the higher energetic plane. He's being reconstituted in a higher dimensional form, the way that Jesus was reconstituted after his crucifixion and practical dismemberment.
So is it the same forces? So because I know that I've read that people put Jesus as the son of Thoth the Atlantean. So is it the same sort of force that keeps coming back in? The Thoth, and then Jesus, and then Arthur, or are they different energies, different assistants, if you like, different interdimensional beings, if you like?
Right. I've never actually heard that Jesus is Thoth, or is
the son of Thoth. Yeah, I think it's Billy Carson.
No, in the timeline in which I work, and the reality in which I work, which is not everyone's reality, but it is for those who get medicine out of it. Jesus is strictly Mother Mary's incarnation. She's Mother Mary's creation, parthenogenetically from the fabric of the universe. This is a very high level priestess function, this divine birth capacity, which we see in the stories of Guinevere and Arthur.
Yes, because they're both miraculous births.
They're
Jesus
miraculous births. Yes, Arthur is miraculously born, so is Guinevere, so is Merlin, so is Galahad. Okay, so something was going on that has been greatly hidden and veiled for reasons, that the patriarchy has to disturb knowledge of feminine magic, because this divine capability of high priestesses enables a very high level being to come in. That was the purpose of virgin birth. And it is a yoga that these women knew how to do, cultivated, and did generation after generation. They passed it on. So we see that Arthur's mother, Igraine, was able to give birth to Arthur in this way. And there is a story about Guinevere's mother and father the conception night, there are very strange goings on that I am able to read as codes of a divine conception ritual. Okay. So in terms of the question you asked, so I look at it this way. There's one overarching great goddess, right? But then they say that she has 10,000 names and faces. So she comes out as different personalities that all feed back up into the great mother monad, but each one has its personality, its medicine, its history, its races that it connects with, its people, right? Just like all human beings are the same, you could say all human beings are a function of the great monad, but we are highly individual. We have many different races. We have many different medicines, many different issues, many different problems, many different histories. So with Jesus and Arthur, it would be the same thing. They are iterations of the great monad of the sacred masculine, which in some cases can be seen as Shiva if you're in India, Jesus if you're in the Western world, Arthur if you're in, the British Isles and beyond, because this is really much more than a British Isles story, Arthur and Guinevere, and it has very big, huge implications for today, which is what I talk about in that class. So that's how I see it.
Okay. All right. So it's sort of like archetypes. They're different archetypes of the same sort of feminine energy.
They're manifestations of the same kind of overarching energy, each with their own spin. Okay. But they have great commonalities that allow us to identify them together. They're like jewels on the same necklace.
There was another aspect that you mentioned on the course, which I thought was interesting, and the concept of the veil becoming thicker at the time of the conception of Arthur, which I believe is around the 6th century.
Yeah.
And so why do you feel that the veil was getting thicker then? And had it got thicker before and then sort of got thinner, and then does it sort of get thicker and thinner, or has it just been this increasing sort of thicker and thicker as the patriarchal society has grown and grown, since the Roman Empire grew, if you like?
Right. I take this all the way back to the time of Atlantis, which I do believe was a real time on planet Earth, as was Lemuria prior to that. And Atlantis, if we peg it as, let's say, 10,000 BCE, and there were things that went on with those cataclysms, and as a result of those cataclysms, and regarding the beings who seeded those two great civilizations, Atlantis was already bringing in problematic beings that were very much focused on out of balance masculine energy, and some alien races that were not all that friendly to humanity, brought a lot of problems, brought with it artificial intelligence in the cosmic sense of this great virus that affects universes and so forth. So they were already having problems. And since 10,000 BCE, we've had a lot of problems on planet Earth, if not before, because some oracles and seers are understanding we have other histories that go back thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of years, with different types of visitations to the Earth and different types of interactions, tamperings with the Earth, with animals, with humans, and so forth. So it doesn't just go back to Rome. It doesn't just go back to Greece. It doesn't just go back to Mesopotamia. It doesn't just go back to the start of the Egyptian civilization. It doesn't just go back to the transition in old Europe 5,000 years ago. It goes back further, but we can really start seeing evidence of this transition from a shamanic, mother-centered society that is very much in tune with the other dimensions of reality into one that's increasingly getting three-dimensional. And so there were different time periods where it was more acutely happening. When Arthur was around, yes, we had the Roman Empire, which was very much a manifestation of a negative alien agenda, if you will, on the planet. It was governed by a certain negative race that was coming in taking over the humans, coming in through the royal lines there, hijacking the virgin birth function so that we have these bizarre Caesars that are coming in instead of the high vibrational Arthurs. And then you also have, so you have the Romans coming into the British Isles, which were remnants of, peaceful mother-centered society, shamanically based, higher dimensional. You need only look at the older archaeological record to see evidence of what they were doing that bespeaks of that. And then you also had the Saxon invasions, which seem to be a Germanic kind of thing. There was an incursion into Germany of these negative beings as well, which then get more and more manifested in World War II with the Nazi energy. Okay, so there's layers and levels of it. But what was happening at the Dark Ages time, of Arthur were these two incursions. I mean, the Romans had already wreaked havoc, and now they're dealing with the Saxons, and Arthur and his magical men are like, no, we do not want your reptilian energy in here. Okay. So those guys actually ended up getting into physical warfare as well as shamanic interdimensional warfare. And then, the Veils just after Arthur's untimely death and the fact that he was not able to create a lineage with Guinevere that would sustain humanity in the British Isles. It's like a door shut, a castle door or a dungeon door shut in the British Isles. And things got more and more three-dimensional. The fairies were retreating more and more and more into their interdimensional realms, or, going into the mountain. That's what they talk about the Tuatha De Danaan doing, going into the mountain. That is a three-dimensional understanding of what actually happened. They had to retreat to some degree to a higher dimension where they couldn't be tampered with physically, although their environment could be tampered with where they thrived and lived, and that would get them and kill them, like destroying forests and things like that. So Arthur is coming in at a very, very difficult time, not only in the British Isles, or what became the British Isles, but on planet Earth itself, because what we're finding from oracles of today is that there are major portals in those islands where, Britain, Ireland, and it's all those ancillary islands and so forth. And so this story is very important today for the entire planet. And it relates to the passing of the recent monarch. And so the timing of that and the awakening that people are having to, wow, what were Arthur and Guinevere? What was the royal line really supposed to be doing? How far has it degenerated? Why did Diana die? All of that type of stuff. Okay. So this is like real stuff that's been going on, shenanigans in front of all of our eyes. And it helps us if we look back at what went down in the period of Arthur and Guinevere. That's what I do in that course. And that is, I think, one of the purposes of our conversation today.
Yes, absolutely. And, I just wanted to, ask you, so what, I can see the purpose of the miraculous birth, but, sort of, do they do this to put high vibrational leaders into the world, or, is it to put the energies in? So is it like are they putting their genes into the gene pool, if you like, or is it more of an energetic thing that these miraculous virgin births involve?
Both.
Okay.
The women who, you see, originally in ancient Lemuria, all people in the original human form gave birth this way because we were kind of more hermaphroditic. But as the human form shifted during whatever period it was, Lemuria, whatever, we've broke into the two sexes, which Plato talks about. And that created all sorts of problems. And so then the people who remained female still had the capacity to do divine birth, but it was made more difficult in that they had to work their own womb space to become androgynous so that they could conceive. Okay, you have to have a doubling within your body to conceive. the women who retained those abilities were from very high vibrational lineages. And so Mary incarnated back into a very high vibrational lineage that goes to her mother Anne, all the way back to Sarah, the biblical Sarah of Abraham and Sarah, who was doing it as well. I mean, I talk about this in the mystery tradition of miraculous conception very extensively. So they were already in high lineages, and that's what we see in Arthur's line. His mother was of a high lineage that really goes back to dragon fairy. And in the original method of divine birth, it was the woman alone who was parthenogenetically conceiving within herself. In the later stages, it was a hierogamic or tantric union. That's what we have probably by the time of Arthur, where it may well be that Igraine was uniting with Uther Pendragon in a high sacred ritual, but both of them had the understanding that they would be bringing in a high being. So there are different versions of divine birth, so to speak. The Tantra was one that they were using, that Guinevere's father was using with the unnamed female mother of her, so forth and so on. So they were still in the Arthurian Guineverian era trying to maintain the high vibration of divine tantric union against all sorts of forces. And that's why in my course I describe the distortions that started happening, why Merlin had to get involved in the subterfuge with Igraine going with Uther Pendragon, why he had to get involved in, all of these other things. The fact that Guinevere and Arthur's conception rites were tampered with, interfered with, and blocked, right? So, that's part of the negative veil thickening that was happening at this time. And I believe they all knew this was the last gasp on planet Earth writ large, and especially in, the Britain, Ireland area, that if they couldn't do this, the Earth was going to be lost for quite a while. And that is indeed what happened. However, it's never lost, because we can still have access to the Akashic records and the memories of what's gone on. We can still access these tools and techniques, this knowledge, and we can resurrect it. We can right these wronged histories, and we can move into divine birth, moving into the future by various womb healings and clearings and so forth that women can do.
Yeah. So you talk about the interference that, and I'm presuming that the interference was how Guinevere became unable to have babies.
Yes.
That the interference then is going on the multidimensional levels, not on the 3D level. Okay.
Both.
All right.
Both,
because it's because of physical manifestation, she wasn't able to have children.
Yes. And, as I discuss in that course, as you may remember, there were two Guineveres. There was like a clone Guinevere, right?
I know, that's so bizarre.
Negative interdimensional beings were already using cloning back then, because they've been very, very advanced for a long time. They're far beyond what conventional science knows about. They were already cloning. They cloned Guinevere at the time of her conception, and they kept going back and forth between the real Guinevere, the false Guinevere, and Arthur was all confused as to which was which. And to this day, it's not even clear which Guinevere was real. And that so-called false Guinevere kept trying to mate with Arthur. And there were things that were, trying to conspire to get that to happen and so forth. It never happened. So it was all messed up one way or another.
Okay. So then, so do you think, in terms of feminine energy, because I know, many of my clients are really interested in the feminine energy, and the do you think that this is a sort of a secular thing, a cycle, that we go through the feminine and then we're going back into the more sort of, masculine, and then we go back into the feminine, sort of like, you know, every like 5,000 years or something, that we're going through different cycles. Because I've read this sort of in the ancient text, you know, that every 5,000 years, and I know the Mayan calendar as well runs on that. So are we now moving into a feminine energy period, and then this will stay for 5,000 years, and then do we then move out of it at the end of it, or because my understanding is that we're now sort of moving up. We're moving on to up into a different timeline, and we're not going to be, you know, we're not going to go back into that situation that we were in the past. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that it should be always a feminine energy that governs the world and a masculine energy that governs the world. In other words, it's meant to be in harmony, in sacred marriage, in hieros gamos. That is what these negative beings have interfered with the most. They tore apart not only the human body, but then the hieros gamos that would maintain the wholeness. They made coupling very difficult, contested, violent, and they arranged it so that the males on this planet would start using their natural given force to become brutal and warring and suppressive of the feminine. So I don't think these are natural cycles at all. I think these are constructed situations that we are trying to rectify now by bringing the feminine back once again. Even if it's a 5,000 year cycle, it doesn't, we're not wedded to that. That's absolutely nothing that we have to deal with on planet Earth. Those are constructed situations, you know, that go on. I mean, Earth is meant to be an Edenic realm, Eden. That's what it is meant to be. It is meant to be a perpetual Lemuria in which learning and growth comes through joy and creativity. It's not meant to be an Atlantean dystopian paradise of artificial intelligence, machinery that takes us away from our natural ability to do healing and this and that and get into altered states of consciousness. Okay.
Yes.
So I think the feminine is rising now as part of this global awakening by which the feminine must re-rise in order to rectify and rebalance things, come into balance with the masculine, and also say goodbye to these negative beings that have been besieging planet Earth.
Yeah. So we're essentially moving back into the state that we should have always been at.
Always.
Because I also believe that planet Earth is not supposed to be pain and suffering. You know,
That's
we're not
right.
supposed to be. I know many people say that that's how we learn, through pain and suffering, but I've never felt that myself. I feel the same as you do, that actually, we know this is, you know, more of a creation planet, you know, and, you know, we are creators, and, you know, there is so much to create here. But with the resistance and the interference, it means that our creations are continuously stopped, you know, and sabotaged, and, you know, it just constantly feels like one step forward, three steps back the whole time.
That's right. Because, Elizabeth, these beings that orchestrate all this get food out of our misery. That's why. So therefore, they have set up mechanisms to keep intergenerational trauma going and intensifying. And they've done it through many means, through the sexual abuse net that has been on the earth for goodness knows how long, through then the co-opting of the birthing processes, which inject pain and suffering at the very beginning of a baby coming into the world, through the plying of us with all sorts of addictive substances and drugs, which call in negative entities that perpetuate the addictions. I mean, all of these kinds of things. So yes, Earth was originally an Eden realm, and that's what attracts all these types of beings to it. They want in on whatever resources are here, right? It has become a bit of a prison planet because we got so contaminated with these energies that we've had to, in a way, be sequestered, you know, until we get things corrected over here. because we can't have this stuff spreading out, because the universe is holographic. Whatever's going on in one sector can affect a sector way the heck over in, you know, quadrant XYZ over there. So they've been trying to contain this high level negativity that's been going on, which is what makes us feel like we're in a prison planet of trauma for many of us. But there are many of us who don't. You know, it's how you flip it, it's how you work with it. Because what I received is that, so the earth has the highest number of people on it right now, because everyone wants in on the great initiation. All these souls from the universe want in on the great initiation, which is, can I be in a prison planet where things are so negative and still initiate into and through love? Then I will move into fifth dimensional and higher consciousness as a soul. And then I will be able to move on creatively. So it's like a grand opportunity experiment. Everyone who's here has chosen to be here, go through these family lines of trauma, reincarnate again and again into it, you know, trying to help the situation out, like help us all awaken, 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 awaken. Arthur and Guinevere, Mary and Jesus, Mary Magdalene have all been messengers and guides coming at various times. And there have been others in many other traditions coming at various times to say, remember, love is the way, love is the way. Wisdom is the way. Here's how you can do it within your own body. Yes, we know that situation is very, very difficult, but here's how you can do it. Here's how you can do it. So that's what we are all in. We are in this game of, can we wake up to the fact that we are awakening?
Because of course, it's not just waking up, is it? For many people, it's releasing, you know, probably thousands of years of trauma, you know, and what we call karma. I mean, I don't believe in karma in the terms of the church. I don't think many people do anymore. But I actually feel that karma has even been created, you know, by something, you know, right, in order to keep us trapped, you know, in the karma that we created. And I sort of think, and now is the time. I write about this in my own book, actually, but now is the time to clear all of this. And, you know, we can do this through the self-development, you know, personal development, clearing it all. But, you know, you know, are there enough of us doing this? You know, are we going to be able to clear it for our children?
Yes, you know, that's the big game. You know, everyone has popcorn watching. Yes, and I agree with you that I think karma initially was something that meant well, but my understanding is it was not meant to go beyond like 5 incarnations. And what ended up happening because of all these distortions is it's been going on epic after epic after epic. I'm hoping that you can hear me, because we've been having a little bit of interference on our here. Whenever we're talking high vibration, right, there's interference. So, so karma has also been used and abused. Anything that was positive will be grabbed by the other side to twist it into its inversion. Anything. And that's why the light is always trying to grab it back in the way of the light, which is not to do force, to break cosmic law about free will, but it's to suggest, it's to impulse, it's to, right? And so a lot of us, when we go, we die, we've been in a lifetime that might've been challenging, we go into the other side, we make a decision to come back, and then we come back into the lake of Lethe, the forgetfulness. We forget that we had those lives, and we have to awaken within this lifetime to remember, oh, right, I came in to rectify this because, right, yeah. So a lot of people are here as bodhisattvas, as servants to this awakening, to help others. Everyone, though, who comes in has to go through getting their memory reawakened, that, oh, right, I have a mission. For some people, it happens early on. It's from the beginning. For some people, it's at different stages in life. Some people end up missing the boat. They go through a whole life and they never remembered. Then they have to come in again. Oh, gosh, darn, you know. So there are people here. This is a very, very heightened time. And now we also have what are called star seeds and indigos coming onto the planet. these young people who have so much access to knowledge and information, holy cow, they are impressive, right? So we're all working together in this, each person for their own soul growth reason and at their own soul growth level. But as soon as people really awaken, like, oh yeah, right. Okay, we're all here at this time because it was going to be very intense. And then we had to get into love. And then we had to work with all these forces. And then we were going to have to be really challenged. But can I stay in love? Can I function from the place of loving wisdom, wise love? You know, that's what we're all about here. And yes, I think that we absolutely can transform this. It does not take as many people to turn the ship around as it does to try to destroy the ship, you know? So there are a lot of us here. And as more and more of us are bringing these messages out, we're figuring out and getting messages and information on how each of us individually needs to do this. It starts with our own lives. It starts with our own healing. And then it emerges from there into what is my ministry? What is my right livelihood? And you could be working in the post office and have this ministry, you know, but more and more people are finding new economic means of doing this work and receiving abundance in exchange that they need to live, right? So yes, and many of the oracles are saying, no, the positive timeline is already written, even though these negative forces are still trying to take it over. But it is not going to happen, but it's not necessarily going to be easy.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not easy. But yeah, I think when you have that mission and purpose, I think it makes it much easier. You know, you sort of feel, you know, that you know where you're going, you know what you're doing. And I think that makes it much easier to stay on that path, if you like. So do you think that there are interdimensional beings here on this planet now?
Yes, of all different types.
Okay.
And
so
right.
Is this why we are all so different? Why we look so different? Why we're all so different? Is this because we have many, many different genetic genes in our gene pool, if you like?
Yes, they took the original human template and tweaked it. Various groups tweaked it in different directions. And so that's kind of what created the races. And each race has like a valence with its, you know, some of its creator beings or, you know, higher geneticists and so forth. But across the board, we all have Pleiadian DNA. And that can be used to pluck the strings of unity and love and be felt reverberated throughout humanity. So that's the Pleiadian agenda. They want that to happen. There's also reptilian DNA, which is encoded in the very word, the reptilian brain. Well, you know, there's a lot of truth to that, meaning these beings that are to humans not friendly. You know, they're like the orcs of Tolkien.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, and allied races like that, the Anunnaki, and then they hybrid and all this type of stuff. So yes, some people on Earth have higher percentages of one thing over another. If you want to see a high percentage of Tuatha De Danaan and fairy, go to Ireland.
With the red hair, the green eyes.
Not even necessarily. They could have dark hair too, but you know the face when you're seeing it. That is fairy. It's casting, get me a fairy. Well, they all are fairy. You know, in August, I was in Ireland at the horse show in Dublin. Oh my God, every other person, you know, unfortunately, they don't realize that they have fairy blood and they're eating hot dogs and crap. But, you know, if someone were to awaken them, hey, did you know that you have a high percentage of fairy blood? Some people know, because I deal with a lot of clients. They come to my Zoom screen and I'm like, wow, do you have any connection to the fairies? And then they start bursting into tears and they're like, yes, as a kid, I saw them. And so I've talked about how we have a lot of human fairy hybrids. All of us have fairy. You know, most of us have a little bit of everything. Yeah. But again, some of us have more percentages of one versus another. So then we're more susceptible to the agendas of one group versus another. And when it's a positive one, great. When it's a negative one, well, you've got the leaders of our world.
Yeah. I was going to ask you something else that I forgot. Oh yeah. So I've been researching, also reading the ancient Mesopotamian texts, which talk about Enki and Enlil, the Anunnaki who came and, fused our chromosomes so that we moved out of apes into, looking like them, basically created us to look like them. Is that how we first began? Or is it the Pleiadians that first created us? Because I've heard both things.
Right. There may be two different timelines around that, which is why there's confusion. Or there may be a distortion in the story that wants us to believe that. Okay.
Yeah, I've often felt that maybe those Mesopotamian texts, were a bit like the Bible. They've sort of been written, in a certain way, like to sort of, honor a certain person, or distort something or whatever. I don't know.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I think that, Helena Blavatsky in the Theosophical tradition said that apes came from humans and not the other way around, So I'm pretty sure that's what she says, if I'm remembering correctly. So what I think is, it's important for each person to say, what is the better timeline for my medicine? Let me embrace a timeline in reality in which I was created as a celestial being with very high level genetics, very high level vibration, 12 or 13 strands of fully activated DNA, able to traverse the dimensions from third and on out, able to bring love, light, and wisdom wherever, able to grow through love, not suffering, because you can grow through love just as much as suffering, okay? And creativity, etc. So I would say, anyone listening to this, what timeline do you want? Grab that one, because this is the nature of reality. We're not bound by a story. We're not bound by a timeline. If that timeline, you've sucked the juice out of it, you've gotten what you need, move to a different timeline, move to a different reality, get the message from that. Some people are like, is the crucifixion story a timeline that we don't need or want? And it's like, well, for some people, we're learning a lot out of that crucifixion timeline. And some people are getting ready to get out of it or never have been in it and have been operating on the outside of it anyway. So the same thing with, how is our human form? How about trying on for a day that at core, I am a divine blueprint individual. All I need to do is transmute out any negative influence to my DNA and amplify the original divine human blueprint, and my life will begin changing in that direction. Try that on for size. You work with that in your meditations. You are the master of your own reality. We are not bound by these codes, these histories, these falsities. You work with whatever is resonating for you as a positive possibility. This is what moving into fifth dimensional consciousness is all about.
Yeah, because our beliefs create our reality. So we can choose to believe what we want. But I think that's a really beautiful and empowering way of looking at it. And actually, I've even felt a shift in my own mind, because I do know, but I mean, I know I understand about the 12-strand DNA, and I do feel that we were created, even in the likeness of the gods, if you like, as this sort of high vibrational being. And then we've been subsequently dumbed down over the centuries, with the if you like, the interference and the resistance.
That's right. And even deeper into what you're saying is that we happen to be souls that are in human bodies right now, working with this DNA interface, this light matter interface, this 3-dimensional, 5th-dimensional interface as a means of learning for our souls. But at core, who are we? We are even beyond that. We're light beings that are little droplets from the monad of the divine. So we're going through this illusion as a means of learning, because we realized that as a break off of the divine that wanted to learn all sorts of things and have all sorts of diversity and variety, we're like, oh, I've got to learn this, I've got to learn that. And so now we're learning about what it is to be on planet Earth right now, awakening to the fact that we have a 12th dimensional or 13th dimensional light body, you know, but we are even beyond that, because you want to connect with your core soul, which immediately holographically takes you to the divine of all existence, which, you know, some people can see as male, some people can see as female, some people can see as both, some people can see as the holy womb chakra of the whole, you know, united empire of the universes, etc. Okay, but you're exploring, you're your own cosmonaut into your own reality and how it connects with divine source. That's really interesting and fun. Have fun with it. And if you're stuck in a reality in which you're like, holy crap, I have, you know, reptilian DNA, and I don't like these Star Wars that are going on the planet, da, da, da. All right, great. And what are you doing for that, right? What is your service in that? How can you be of high vibrational service in this bizarre illusion that we're going through right now that is very real, because we ended up having pain and all sorts of things.
I think the multidimensional aspect is very hard for people to understand. Even I myself, you know, find myself grasping at it sometimes. I mean,
right. So what I say. Take sacred medicines and you'll start opening up. They will unequivocally show you the multiple nature of reality. There are people doing lots of sacred medicines all over the world, and they are having their minds cracked open, and they're having their memories returned to them, and their karma, you know, exonerated, and so forth. And I would say do it carefully, because those domains have also been grabbed by the negative forces. They're everywhere. But you can, if you can do it with proper guidance and with proper anchoring of yourself into source, you can get a lot of information, and you will know beyond the shadow of a doubt that there are other dimensions. And let's, you know, end this argument right here.
I do actually do
really waste of time.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe that there are other dimensions. And when I do my deep meditations, you know, I can really connect to very, very powerful, you know, images, you know, which I think, you know, that's sort of where people start on this sort of path.
They do. And they have mystical experiences. They have synchronicities. Synchronicities are a great way of you knowing beyond the shadow of a doubt that there are other dimensional things going on. Because like, how could that weird coincidence have happened? I mean, my God, the mind of the divine to have orchestrated everything to create that moment. Wow, it just starts blowing your mind. Pay attention to synchronicities. Pay attention to the numinous feelings you have, like when you give birth, when you have sex, when you are on a mountaintop, you know. It doesn't even take medicine to be able to have that type of feeling. When you feel love, when you feel awe, those are all ways of connecting with and knowing that there's far more than meets the eye, Horatio, you know, whatever this phrase is from Shakespeare. Okay, so now, unfortunately, you know, if people are so closed down that they can't even open to that, well, you know, and then they're besieged by these beings of alcohol and drugs in a bad way and all this sort of thing and trauma, well, then you've got to climb up, you know, you've got a lot of healing to do to climb up. It may or may not happen, your awakening in this lifetime, but whatever, everybody's on their own path. But we are in a process.
Yeah. So what are the timelines? Do you have, I mean, I know, you know, like how long is a piece of string, you know, and I know there's a window of sort of 200, 300 years maybe before we fully properly move into Aquarius. But I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't know. I think it depends on us, doesn't it? It depends on us.
All right. You know what you all people need is a bumper sticker that says Aquarius now. That's what you need. Stop with the 200, 300 years from now. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like
manifest it now.
Manifest
create it
now. You're doing it now. You could have a moment where you are fully enlightened. You could have a few minutes of it. You could figure out how to do it for a day, a week, a month, a year, you know, and it's getting easier and easier. You don't just have to go in caves and be doing it now, away from everyone, you know, like we're all householders. We're trying to figure it out. And so the timeline is now. The opportunity is now. The future beneficial atmosphere and reality is now. Because as we know from really the deepest quantum physics and whatever, all time is simultaneous. So the fact of time being a timeline is chronos, it's illusion. But there's kairos. There's kairos, which is it's all in the same pot together. And if you want a good way of working with that, Tom Kenyon does that a lot in his work and his book, the Arthurian Anthology, the Arthurian Anthology, where he has you see that there's a circle around you of all possible timelines, and you're like, ooh, you know, going to that one. Start getting busy with grabbing that timeline into your life. That's what this is all about, not oracular prognostications.
Yeah. You know, like I was saying before, our reality is our beliefs. So, you know, we bind ourselves so tightly inside this little box, you know, and call this life, you know, and yet actually life is, you know, it's huge.
Right.
And we're so limited.
And I know people who live in this life and absolutely do not feel like this is a prison planet, a sequestered planet, a quarantine planet. They're having a golden life. You know, I'll have what she's having, all right? You know, with that kind of thing. And, you know, that is possible. I mean, we can flip it, right? But you're working with whatever the grist is in your own mill. If you had a lot of trauma, you had a lot of pain, you had a lot of anxiety, you're not just going to be like, boop, you know, there is a process that your body mind system needs to go through, right? That's why the timeline can be helpful, because our three-dimensional body, mind, spirit needs that extended accordion of time to go through and really anchor it in. That's why we're in the dimension of linear time. But there are other dimensions that we can be working with to accelerate that process and so forth. So again, have fun with it, y'all.
Yeah, because I work with many women, you know, who are going through struggles, and you know, for them it's very, very hard to see beyond that. But yeah, you know, I think it's just a matter of just, you know, just keep going, and keep releasing.
That's right.
The karma, you know, the trapped energy, or however you want to sort of view it, and just keep going.
One of the main things I learned was loving oneself every day. That's the easiest step and the hardest step to that path. It has to be through self-love. It can't be just an intellectual process like, oh, I'm going to release this, I'm going to release that. Yeah, and then you're stuck with your trauma body. Okay, here's my trauma body. I love you, right? And this is the work of Matt Kahn. He's like, whatever arises, love that. So he's providing a big measure of that piece. And there are many, many tools and processes we can use, and including in asking for divine grace, calling on the masters, the Mother Mary, you know, Magdalene, Jesus, and whoever else feels to you to be a high-level master. Call upon them, ask them for grace, ask them for quickening, ask them for help, acceleration of this process.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And I think that's a great place to end. I think we've been talking for an hour. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time this evening. And it's been an amazing conversation. Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. I so look forward to this, really, you know, touching people, because I don't always talk in this concentrated a way for an extended hour. And I think this was even like on a new level beyond some of what I've said before.
Yeah, I feel that as well. And I think it will be just what people need to hear, you know, because yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
You're
take
welcome.
care. Take care. Bye. Bye. Bye.